Hey everyone, I'm back with yet another video. I realized while I was making the anatomy videos that I had yet to discuss proportions. It's good to know anatomy, but if you don't know how they relate to each other, you'll run into issues like the legs are too long, arms are too short, hands are teeny, etc. Keeping in mind general proportions, make sure you don't make these mistakes. Now, there are several methods of measuring the human body. You have some head or cranial unit measuring, where the body is about 7.5 units tall for the average person. You have something where you compare parts of the body to other parts as measurement. This would be something like how the hand is about as big as the face. These are good ways to learn proportions, and I would recommend looking up and studying these methods just to know. In fact, I'll link some Proko videos in the description where he talks about these methods in detail. But you have to keep in mind, like they mentioned in the Proko video, the cranial unit measurement is only good for when the body is straight up and down. If there's any perspective or if there's any movement, this method no longer works. So I recommend when you're studying these methods, look for where things touch and find landmarks that you can compare and relate other body parts to. In this video, I'm going to be discussing very loosely some of the head measurement system, but I'm mostly going to be talking about the proportions I keep in mind as I draw bodies. Drawing a quick body here. Keep in mind this is more than likely has some inaccuracies because I focus on close enough, not so much 100% accuracy. This is fine sometimes, but I built up a general understanding of proportions through the other methods that I mentioned, so I would recommend building that up first before you just start winging it. If you draw a line from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet, you'll find the halfway point is around the pubic bone, just a little bit above the crotch. The wrists drop a bit lower, this time actually lining up with the crotch. When it comes to the lower body, if you draw a line from the greater trochanter to the bottom of the feet and divide it in half, you'll find the knee. This shows that the legs are pretty even, about 50-50 split. The arm actually isn't split like the legs, it's a little bit shorter in the humerus side. A measurement I keep in mind is that the elbow lines up with the bottom of the rib cage. Other general measurements, the hand is about as big as the face, while the feet are a tad longer. Alright, now we're moving to the torso. The torso from head to bottom of the pelvis is 4 heads tall. But this includes the neck too, so the rib cage alone is like a little bit taller than a head, like 1.5 heads tall. The abdomen is a little shorter than the rib cage, but still a little bit taller than a single head measurement. The pelvis is exactly a head measurement though, so that's simpler. I don't keep in mind all these cranial unit measurements. I may use it subconsciously from time to time when I can, but mostly the comparative measurements I use all the time are the wrist ends at the crotch, although most of the time I think I draw it a bit longer. Legs are split 50-50. Torso is a bit bigger than a head. Shoulders are like half a head. Hand is the same as the size of the head, and the elbow lines up with the bottom of the rib cage. Once you get a basic grasp of the proportions and the mistakes are minimal, you might have issues where all your characters look like the same cardboard cutout of the average body type. Well, here's the thing in art. There are no rules. Now, if you want to make something realistic, there are rules of life that you have to abide by. For example, if you want to paint a realistic sky, you wouldn't use pink unless it's like a sunset. But our brains are fairly easy to trick, so long as you get close enough, it'll let unrealistic things slide. This is why, as long as you get values right, you can use colors we wouldn't see in an ordinary scene, but since it's close enough, you can push for artistic expression. So as long as we have some basic proportions that our brain can recognize, we can push these proportions as far as we want for design purposes. But when you push proportions, you have to keep in mind what it shows about that person. For example, here I push this guy's ribcage really wide, and his legs are almost stubs with how short they are. and the head is like a pea. But in this case, it makes him look huge, and you get the impression of a looming, gigantic Hulk figure. If you make someone's legs built, maybe they're a runner. If their legs are super long and thin, maybe they're good at sneaking or something, who knows. If someone's short, they could get into events that other characters couldn't, things like that. You can even push just a particular body part, but keep everything else fairly similar. Take Popeye, for example. His forearms are huge and unrealistic, but since he's super strong and cartoony, it's acceptable. I was also going into a little bit of derail into dwarfism. You might think that dwarfism just makes them shorter, so you'll just shrink a human being. But interestingly enough, dwarfism is generally a genetic issue, and it causes issues with the long bones of the body. So you can get anything from short legs and arms but a normal-sized torso to maybe just one body part that's smaller, or small organs and small spines. So in the case of dwarfs with achondroplasia, the legs are shortened and I believe are also poorly grown too, so they get bowed. Their wrists in this case do not reach their crotch like in general proportions. In fact, their hands might go like a little farther than their belt, but not much. Then there are other types of dwarfism where there might be an issue with like growth hormones, so they're just generally shorter but have no proportional issues. I'm not an expert in dwarfism, obviously, and I might have even gotten some things wrong since this was just like a basic internet search. I didn't go too in depth. But I do like learning things, so if there's anything you want to mention in the comments, I'd be happy to hear about it. To wrap this up, I'm going to make a character of my own, Bob, and talk about one more art fundamental. First thing I'm doing is making his head super big and making his torso pretty small. As I was drawing his legs, I decided to make his ankles super thin, just because I felt like it. Once we get to his face, I give him a huge nose, little circles for eyes, and since I'm making lots of things big, I'm going to carry that over into his eyebrows, ears, and mustache. Since it's Christmas time, I did add little buttons on his shirt like an elf or something. He also seems like a guy who wears shorts, so I just threw it on him. Now for my side tangent. I want to talk about an art fundamental called big, medium, small. It varies proportions in a way that's interesting. Like water dripping through an upside-down pyramid or funnel, it directs our focus from big ideas to the details. Take, for example, this rectangle. I'm going to divide it into equal squares. Kind of boring, isn't it? So let's take that same rectangle and make one square bigger than all the others. That's a lot more interesting, but we can push it more. This is a lot more interesting. Even looking at Bob, you can see a little bit of this going on. His head is obviously the big shape, the torso is the medium-sized shape, and the legs are the small. You can also apply big, medium, small to a section of the body. Take the legs, for example, here. The shorts are the big shape, the legs are the medium shape, and the feet are the small shape. I could vary this, turn the shorts into pants and stop about mid-calf, in which case the feet are kind of the medium shape and the legs are like the small section. I avoid ending clothes at joints. It kind of makes something called a tangent, which is when two lines get close together and flatten the image. Or they get close but they don't quite overlap, so it flattens the image. The joints are areas you don't generally want to cut out, such as like framing a picture, because it can make an image awkward. Alright, forgive my little derails and side tangents, but I enjoy talking about stuff like this, especially character design. If you found this helpful, I'm glad. And if you think you can learn more from me, I got a bunch of other videos like it on my channel, so consider coming over and subscribing. Until then, see you next video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.